At the dawn of U.S. television, there were only 3 stations.
This is ABC Television Network.
This is the CBS Television Network.
NBC Television.
That was it. Those were the only ones available. It wasn't like now where we have cable channels like IFC, GSN, Smithsonian, whatever. It was really the only 3. Many companies did try to have their own networks, though, at the time. The first big attempt was the Dumont Network.
This is the Dumont Television Network.
This network opened in 1942 until ceasing operations in 1956. ABC during this time was struggling. They only had 14 affiliate stations while CBS and NBC had 40, and they were also on the verge of bankruptcy. However, one company saved them. Paramount. See, they had a theater division called the United Paramount Theaters, which was also on the verge of bankruptcy. And so in 1953, they merged, and because of that merger, ABC was saved and became a household name. But also because of that, the Dumont Network also failed. All because of Paramount. However, besides saving ABC, they still had an interest of having their own network. I mean, they already had a Paramount television division in the company, which produced shows like Happy Days, Mission Impossible, The Arsenio Hall Show, etc. They had previously tried with the Paramount Television Network in 1948, but it actually did worse than the Dumont Network, only lasting 8 years with no hit shows, unless you think Time for Beanie is a hit. Plans began in 1976 by a man named Barry Diller for the new channel in collaboration with the Hughes Television Network, the Paramount Television Service. It was scheduled to launch in April 1978 with shows like Star Trek Phase 2 and a series based on the War of the Worlds film. Despite Barry's plans, though, 6 months before its launch, it was canceled after the board and Paramount said it would lose too much money. The Star Trek series was later reformatted into the Star Trek film, and the War of the Worlds series was never materialized. Barry was infuriated by Paramount, though, so he chose to leave the studio. He was still determined to make a television network, so in 1984, he went to 20th Century Fox and created the network we know as Fox in 1986. He greenlit shows like The Simpsons and Married with Children, which gained traction to the network for the show's edge. And officially in 1994, Fox became the 4th U.S. television network. But Paramount, they still wanted a part of that network pie, and what inspired them to do so was a new FCC rule that networks could now own their own shows. And they were hoping to team up with a company called Chris Craft, who were originally a boat manufacturer, by the way, but they were working with Warner Brothers on their own station. In January 1983, Warner Brothers and Chris Craft created the Primetime Entertainment Network as a potential 5th network. They aired programming such as Babylon 5, a space series, Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, a sequel to the 1972 ABC action western crime show, Point Man, a crime show that originally started as a TV movie and then later into a series, and Time Tracks, a sci-fi show, among many other syndicated programs. In November 1993, Warner Brothers announced that they would be forming a brand new network called the WB with the Tribune Company. 6 days later, Chris Craft announced they were going with Paramount to create UPN, the United Paramount Network. However, this was already agreed upon back in July of that year, leaving the status of the Primetime Entertainment Network dead. It was officially pulled off the air in 1997. Also in 1994, Viacom would buy Paramount. This will become important later, trust me.
Gee, Daffy, I wonder who they're gonna get to pull the switch.
Why me, indubitably, as I possess all of the talent around here.
What's up, Frog?
The WB first launched on January 11th, 1995 with the pilot of the show called The Wayans Brothers, a sitcom about two brothers. It also premiered other shows like Muscle, a show about a gym, which was canceled after 13 episodes. The Parenthood, a black parody of the 50s sitcom Father Knows Best, and Unhappily Ever After, a sitcom about a troubling marriage. With the launch of the WB, it was clear they were trying to prioritize sitcoms for the new network. Of course, you can't forget the local news and syndicated shows from the affiliated stations, though. On January 17, 1995, UPN launched with the pilot for the show Star Trek Voyagers. The premiere for the show also had the highest rating in the channel's history, with over 21 million people watching, as well as the only time UPN ranked higher than the other networks. Other shows that premiered on the network including Marker, a drama series, The Watcher, an anthology series starring Sir Mix-a-Lot, Pigsty, a show about 5 guys and 1 girl, Legend, a sci-fi western, and Platypus Man, a sitcom based off of a stand-up comedian's act. Except for Star Trek, which lasted until 2001, all of these shows lasted only 13 episodes and were universally panned by critics and viewers. It shows how rocky UPN was going to be going forward. However, both of these stations were behind the top 4. One other thing I'm going to do in this is, for each year we go through, I'm going to rank which station had the better shows. So for the launch of the networks, both weren't very good, but I'm going to go with UPN. We are officially at the start of the 1995-96 season. In case you don't know, most TV station seasons premiere in September, with the ending in June, leaving the summer for repeat syndication and sometimes movie airings. Anyway, the WB started the season off with Sister Sister, which was previously canceled by ABC, Kirk, a sitcom about a guy, Simon, a sitcom about a stockbroker, Cleghorn, a sitcom about a single mom's life, First Time Out, which is described as the Latino version of the Fox sitcom Living Single. Worth noting that Cleghorn and First Time Out were canceled by the end of 1995. And Savannah, a soap opera lasting to 1997. And let's see if UPN can fix itself from its disastrous start. It started with In the House, which was canceled by NBC before being picked up, lasting until 1989, as well as starring by LL Cool J. Nowhere Man, a sci-fi thriller about a photojournalist, which was canceled after 1 season. Deadly Games, a sci-fi show about a video game, which was canceled after 1 season. Live Shot, a drama about a TV station, also canceled after 1 season. Swift Justice, a detective show that was compared to Die Hard and CBS's The Equalizer. It was canceled after 1 season again. The Centennial, an action drama series about a U.S. Ranger, which actually lasted to 1999. And finally, Moesha. This was a sitcom about a girl who went to high school, and this was actually a success. It got very good ratings in the black community, lasting all the way up to 2001. It quite shows how much UPN was trying to get into the game, but only one show seemed to be a hit, with the majority of the shows being canned almost immediately. But which was better? I'm going with UPN again. It had better variety compared to the WB's exclusively sitcoms. Another thing that launched at the beginning of the 1995-96 season were children's blocks for each station. Nowadays, it's almost unheard of for a station like NBC to be airing cartoons, but stations like Fox and ABC had blocks like Fox Kids and Disney Afternoon. UPN and the WB wanted a part of that cake. Starting with Kids WB launching in September 1995, airing shows from 8 to 11 a.m. on weekends and 4 to 5 p.m. on weekdays. This block aired shows as Animaniacs, Ace Ventura Pet Detective, Superman, Batman, Scooby-Doo, Ozzy and Drix, etc., as well as airing specials like Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer in 2000. In 2001, Kids WB added a new block called Toonami, where they aired more anime-type programming like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, etc. Toonami now lives as part of Adult Swim, where it airs actual anime shows like Assassination Classroom, My Hero Academia, Dragon Ball Z, and plenty more. UPN Kids was UPN's response to the WB, launching around the same time and would air Sunday through Fridays for 2 hours. It aired Space Strikers, Technoman, The Incredible Hulk, Jumanji series, Spider-Man, X-Men, Breaker High, just to name a few. UPN Kids had terrible ratings, however, and Paramount did know this. They first tried to go to Nickelodeon about having their shows on their network, a la CBS's Nick on CBS block. Instead, though, they went to Disney, since they had just recently shut down their cartoon block Disney Afternoon. They officially created their block for the 1999 season called Disney's 1-2, originally known as Disney's Womtastic, which would last all the way up till 2003. After 2003, UPN affiliate stations would air Fox's cartoon block at the time called 4Kids TV. We were at the start of the 1996-97 season. Starting with the WB, we got Brotherly Love, a show originally canceled by NBC, only to be picked up for one last season. Nick Fresno, Licensed Teacher, a sitcom about for teachers, lasting until 1998. The Steve Harvey Show, not his talk show, but a sitcom lasting to 2002. Life with Roger, a sitcom that was canceled after one season. Seventh Heaven, a family drama that lasted all the way up till 2007. Smart Guy, a show about an elementary student, which lasted until 1999. The Jamie Foxx Show, a sitcom about a musician version of Jamie Foxx, which lasted until 2001. And finally, arguably one of the most popular WB shows, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, based on the 1992 film. The show was about this horror school, I guess. The show was also targeted for younger women, more than the rest of the crowd. Fun fact, the best episode is called Hush. Going to UPN, we start with Malcolm and Eddie, a sitcom once again targeting the black community, which lasted until 2000. Goody Behavior, about a paroled con artist, which was canceled after one season. Sparks, a sitcom also starring the uncle from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which was canceled after one season. Homeboys in Outer Space, a sci-fi fantasy sitcom, which was canceled after one season. Social Studies, a sitcom about a boarding school, which lasted a sad 6 episodes. And finally, The Burning Zone, which was UPN's version of The X-Files. This was also canceled after one season. Yeah, UPN sucked this time, but luckily they still had Star Trek and Moesha giving them viewers. Which was better? I guess the WB this time, probably because of Buffy. Also in 1996, Viacom would buy 50% of UPN. Once again, this will become important later in the story. Into the 1997-98 season, the WB started with The Tom Show, a sitcom about a TV producer from, St. Paul, Minnesota. The show was canceled after one season, though. Kelly Kelly, a sitcom about an English teacher. It only lasted 7 episodes. All Right Already, a sitcom about a businesswoman, which was canceled after one season. You Are the One, a sitcom about an architect, which was prematurely canceled after 7 episodes. 3, an adventure drama about thieves, which was canceled after 13 episodes. a miniseries created by Steven Spielberg called Invasion America, about aliens or something like that. And finally, the only show to do well during the season, Dawson's Creek, which was about a group of people at a school. The show was marketed mainly to the same audience as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it actually did really well. Well, the WB didn't do all that hot, but what about UPN? Well, there was Good News, a sitcom about a pastor, which was canceled after one season. Love Boat, The New Wave, a sequel to the original ABC series, which was canceled after one season. Clueless, based off the movie. The series was originally canceled by ABC, but was later picked up, lasting 2 more seasons until 1999. Hits, a sitcom about a record company, which was canceled before the end of 97. And finally, Head Over Heels, a sitcom about a video dating company. It showed a little bit of controversy for being a little sexist, as well as its TV rating being too low. Well, it's pretty clear that UPN and the WB are going downhill, but luckily some changes are happening soon. But which was better? Well, none of them were good, but just for the sake of picking one, I'll go with the WB. Coming into the 1998-99 season, for the WB we got Zoe, Duncan, Jack, and Jane, a sitcom that lasted 2 seasons until 2000. Movie Stars, a sitcom about celebrities raising children, which lasted 2 seasons again. The Army Show, take a wild guess what it's about. It was canceled before the end of 1998. A drama called Hyperion Bay, which was canceled after 1 season. Rescue 77, a medical drama sort of based on Backdraft, which was canceled after 8 episodes. Felicity, a drama by J.J. Abrams, the one who made the new Star Wars movies, which lasts until 4 seasons until its cancellation in 2002. And finally, Charmed, one of the few shows that lasts until the WB's end, lasting 8 whole seasons. Besides the last 2, the WB didn't do all that hot, but UPN had some interesting stuff stirring. UPN began the season with Guys Like Us, a sitcom by Dan Schneider from Nickelodeon. It was canceled after 1 season. Die Resta, a sitcom about a cop, which was canceled after 1 season. Home Movies, which was canceled after 5 episodes. However, you might be familiar with the show as it was revived by Adult Swim at the start of their block in 2001, where it went on for 4 seasons. 7 Days, a sci-fi about time travel, which lasted 3 seasons. Mercy Point, a sci-fi medical drama, which only lasted 7 episodes. Reunited, this sitcom had the lowest rating in UPN's history. Only 885,000 people were reported to have watched the show, and it was canceled after 7 episodes. Family Rules, a sitcom about a basketball coach, which lasted 6 episodes. And finally, Legacy, a Western drama, which at least lasted a season. However, that's not all from UPN. There were 3 shows from the season that drew a lot of attention to the network. However, the first one wasn't for the good. The Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer. This was a sitcom about the Lincoln presidency, but also parodying the Clinton presidency, while also making fun of slaves. This raised a whole lot of controversy for, guess what? Which it was, it's true. However, it also was straight out mocking Bill Clinton in its pilot, which was called AOL, Abe Online, where Lincoln engages in telegraph sex with a woman he's never seen, obviously parodying the Monica Lewinsky scandal. It was in such bad taste that UPN didn't even air the pilot, and it went straight into the 2nd episode as its premiere. However, it was still canceled for being racist. It's almost like they were trying to go for the South Park audience of trying to be edgy, but it just didn't work. UPN was interested in a show like The Simpsons, which was the show that made Fox a household name. They wanted their own animated sitcom, so they went with Dilbert, based on the comic strip. The show did decently well, actually, lasting only 2 seasons, however. It wasn't canceled because of low ratings like other UPN shows. The creator Scott Adams said in 2006 and 2020 these statements.
It was on UPN, a network that few people watch. And because of some management screw-ups between the first and second seasons, the time slot kept changing and we lost our viewers. We were also scheduled to follow the worst TV show ever made, Shasta McNasty. On TV, your viewership is 75% determined by how many people watched the show before yours. That killed us. I lost my TV show for being white when UPN decided it would focus on an African American audience. This was the third show I lost for being white. The other two were in corporate America, they told me directly.
The other popular show was WWF SmackDown. This was UPN's attempt at bringing sports to the network, as wrestling was previously only on cable networks, like WCW Nitro and Thunder on TNT and TBS respectively, and WWE's own Raw on USA Network. Now, this wasn't the first time wrestling was on a cable network, though. Both on NBC and Fox, they had tried in the late 80s and early 90s with Saturday Night's Main Event with WWE. But this was the first readily available wrestling show on the network. This lasted actually all the way until the end of UPN, and would actually be the last thing they would air right before they would end the program. So which was better? UPN for sure, actually. Even though they did screw up with Desmond to Pfeiffer, but they got Dilbert, and I grew up with SmackDown. The WB started the 1999-2000 season with Safe Harbor, a drama about a Florida sheriff, which was canceled after 10 episodes. DC, a drama that lasted only 7 episodes. Jack and Jill, not that Jack and Jill, but that Jack and Jill, a comedy drama which lasted 2 seasons ending in 2001. Mission Hill, a Hanna-Barbera-style animated series which only lasted 13 episodes. Brutally Normal, a sitcom that lasted 8 episodes. A spin-off of Buffy the Vampire Slayer called Angel, which lasted 5 seasons ending in 2004. Young Americans, a drama about a boarding school, which only lasted 8 episodes. However, it was sponsored by Coca-Cola. Popular, a comedy drama, which lasted 2 seasons ending in 2001. And finally, Baby Blues, an animated sitcom, with the first half of the series airing on the WB and the other half on Adult Swim. Now it's UPN's turn. The Parkers, a spin-off of Moesha, which lasted 5 seasons ending in 2004. Grown Ups, a sitcom starring Jaleel White from Family Matters. This was canceled after 1 season. Shasta McNasty, also known as The Worst Show on the Network, was a sitcom that somehow lasted a full season. The Strip, an action drama about a detective at Caesar's Palace, which was canceled after 10 episodes. Secret Agent Man. This was a spy series, which only lasted 12 episodes. And finally, The Beat, a drama which only lasted 6 episodes. This era of the two networks could be considered the midlife crisis. However, UPN did miss out on a show that could have turned their network around. In 1999, a pilot was brought to the network called Malcolm in the Middle. They turned it down, and it went to Fox, becoming a huge success lasting 7 seasons. So which was better? I guess the WB. Well, we're coming to the end of the 1990s, and the 2000s are coming up really quickly, and both networks are losing tons of money and ratings. At the time, there were talks about a merger between UPN and the WB. However, the CEO of the WB responded with this.
I don't think there will be a merger. I think one of us is going away.
In 1998, Viacom was in talks with the CBS Corporation about a possible merger. With this merger, Viacom would own CBS, the Nashville Network, CMT, MTV, VH1, Nickelodeon, TV Land, Showtime, and the Movie Channel, as well as Blockbuster and a stake of Paramount, meaning Viacom would own a part of UPN. Originally, though, there were some issues with the FCC, where they said that one company could not own more than one television network. To solve this, Viacom could only own 33% of UPN, with Chris Kraft owning the rest. Before the merger was finalized, Chris Kraft sued Viacom about a clause in their contract that said that they couldn't make a deal with the competing network. An ultimatum was made by Viacom, backed by New York, giving Chris Kraft two options. Either they sell the complete share of UPN to Viacom in return for $5 million, or they could buy Viacom's share of UPN for $5 million. Since Chris Kraft lost nearly $1 billion so far on UPN, they eventually, and maybe even reluctantly, decided to sell their share to Viacom, meaning Chris Kraft was gone. Almost. See, Chris Kraft still owned a bunch of affiliate stations for cities to air UPN. Chris Kraft was interested in selling their stations and all its assets to Viacom, and Viacom was interested too, except that Chris Kraft was asking for $3.1 billion. Chris Kraft would then sell their stations to Fox, where their company would run UP affiliate stations until 2003. Confused? Yeah, that's how television works. But this would mean Chris Kraft is officially gone, and the merger would be completed in 2000. In 2002, Viacom realized that the name United Paramount Network doesn't really make sense anymore, as the United part came from Chris Kraft. Originally, Viacom wanted to rename the network to just the Paramount Network. However, affiliate stations didn't like that because they thought it would confuse viewers. So instead, Viacom shortened it to just UPN, with no meaning behind the abbreviation. They also changed the logo of UPN from this to this, much to the dismay of affiliated stations. We're now in the millennium, 2000. The WB tried a show called The Oblongs, an animated sitcom, maybe trying the same format as Dilbert and The Simpsons. However, it only lasted 13 episodes. Hype, a sketch comedy series similar to All of That and Mad TV. However, it didn't go past one season. Nikki, a sitcom about a showgirl, which lasted for 2 seasons. Grosse Point, a satirical sitcom about the behind the scenes of a drama show. It was so funny it lasted only a season. Gilmore Girls, one of the few shows to last past the end of the WB. Dead Last, a fantasy about a band, which only lasted a season. And finally, after ABC canceled it, the WB picked up Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, which lasted until 2003. In UPN's department, we got Chains of Love, their attempt of getting into the reality TV phase. The show was originally actually bought by NBC. However, it aired on UPN instead, and it only lasted 6 episodes. Another reality TV show they ordered was Manhunt, similar in style to the movie Predator. However, this game fell into some hot water after supposedly producers would rig the game, which is illegal. Girlfriends, a sitcom that lasted through the end of UPN. Freedom, a sci-fi show about a war, which was canceled after 1 season. All Souls, a paranormal hospital series inspired by the 1994 miniseries The Kingdom, which only lasted 6 episodes. Special Units 2, a sci-fi show about mythology, which was canceled after 2 seasons. Gary and Mike, a claymation sitcom, which was canceled after 1 season. And finally, One-on-One, another show aimed for the black community, which lasted until 2006. Once again, though, UPN missed out on another hit. In 2000, Simon Cowell went to UPN to pitch his British show, Pop Idol, a singing competition. UPN was hesitant, as music competitions were popular in America at the time, which was evident from ABC's attempt at the formula, Making the Band. The show eventually aired on Fox in 2002, becoming a sleeper hit. However, there was one more show on UPN for this season. Remember SmackDown? Well, the creator, Vince McMahon, wanted to create a football league because he thought the NFL was stupid. So he created the XFL, the Extreme Football League.
If you're from California, you're probably about to explode with excitement right now. You're probably going crazy. You're probably about to lose your mind. Because just a few short months ago, there was no way anyone could have guessed it would all come down to this. Of course, I'm talking about tomorrow night's XFL Championship game.
He went to NBC to air Saturday games, as well as the $1 Million Championship, the XFL version of the Super Bowl, and also went to UPN and the Nashville Network for Sunday's games. The XFL season began on February 3rd, 2001, a week after the Super Bowl, and almost immediately, ratings were terrible. Ratings plummeted week after week on both NBC and UPN/TNN. Even sponsors were pulling out. After the $1 Million Championship, which was won by the Los Angeles Extremes, talks about a second season began, and NBC said no, mainly due to the 2002 Winter Olympic Games coming up, but also because they lost over $50 million airing the XFL. UPN was open to the idea, however, only if they cut SmackDown from its 2 hours length to 90 minutes, which Vince was not happy about. So with that, the XFL was no more. The XFL was revived in 2020, airing on ABC and Fox. However, the season ended prematurely due to the coronavirus pandemic. But besides the XFL, UPN never aired any sports, which was a disappointment to them because they wanted to achieve better ratings than ABC's Monday Night Football. But which was better in this season? Probably UPN for taking a risk with the XFL. Gotta commend them for that. Heading into the new season, the WB had the Jamie Kennedy Experiment, one of those hidden camera prank shows which lasted until 2004. Men, Women, and Dogs, which barely lasted a season. Off Center, a sitcom which was heavily advertised as From the Guys Who Brought You American Pie. It did last 2 seasons, but had some controversy for being a little too raunchy for television. Smallville, a superhero show which lasted all the way to the end of the WB. Glory Days, a mystery drama which only lasted 9 episodes. My Guide to Becoming a Rock Star, a sitcom about a band which only lasted a season. Raising Dad, a sitcom that's eerily similar to Full House and even stars Bob Saget. It only lasted a season though. And Reba, a sitcom about that actually lasted past the end of the WB. So that's nice and all for the WB, but what about UPN? Well, 2 of the WB's flagship shows, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Roswell, expire from the network, and its producers wanted to bring it to UPN. And so they did, lasting an additional 2 seasons. One show that was kicked off the network was Star Trek Voyagers, and it was replaced by Star Trek Enterprises, which lasted to 2005. Other shows include The Random Years, a sitcom that only lasted 7 episodes, and Under the One Roof, another reality show attempt, which was canned after only 3 episodes. Which was better? Well, I'll go with UPN, mainly because of Buffy. Another new season. Yeah, this is kind of a dry spell at the 2 networks, so not much is happening. The WB had High School Reunion, a reality show about, guess what, which aired until 2005. Black Sash, an American drama, which only lasted 6 episodes. Everwood, a drama series about, I think, nature, which lasted until 2006. Birds of Prey, which you may think has to do with Harley Quinn, but it doesn't. It's about someone named Oracle. It was canned after 13 episodes. Family Affairs, a sitcom starring Tim Curry, which was canceled after 1 season. The Surreal Life, a reality show about living in a mansion. It lasted only a season on the WB before moving over to VH1. What I Like About You, another Dan Schneider sitcom, which lasted 4 seasons, ending in 2006. And finally, Greetings from Tucson, an average sitcom, which only lasted a season. In UPN's lane, we have Haunted, a horror drama series, which was canceled after 11 episodes. A reboot of The Twilight Zone, which you'd think would be popular based on the success of the original series. However, it was canceled after 1 season. Platinum, a drama series about a record company, which was canceled after 6 episodes. And finally, a new reality show from the girl from Halloween Resurrection, America's Next Top Model. This was actually a hit, lasting all the way up to the end of UPN. And actually, this and SmackDown are the only UPN shows still airing today. So which was better? Probably the WB. Going into 2003-2004, the WB kicked off with Tarzan, based on the Disney property. It barely made it to the end of the 2003. The WB also made their own version of American Idol when that got popular, called Superstar USA. I guess they couldn't have revived Star Search. One Tree Hill, which lasted through the end of the WB into 2012. Run of the House, a sitcom which was canceled after one season. Blue Collar TV, possibly a take on Fox's Mad TV, which is a sketch comedy series with Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy, which lasted until 2006. And finally, The Help, a sitcom about a spoiled family. It was canceled after 7 episodes. For UPN, there was Eve, which is pretty similar to Moesha. Both even starred a singer as their star, and this lasted until 2006. The Mullets, a sitcom about guys who had mullets and are named The Mullets. Yep, this existed. You can guess how long that lasted. Game Over, a adult animated series that looks horrible in its animation style. Are You the Girl, a singing competition which only lasted 9 episodes. And finally, Amish in the City, which was a reality show about Amish living regular lives. Yeah, this series is a little controversial. You could probably guess how long that lasted. And I'm going to go with the WB for this one. 2004-2005, the WB started with a show called Jackie and Bobby, a drama series which only lasted a season. The Mountain, another drama series which was canceled after 13 episodes. Drew Carey's Green Screen Show, a stupid game show hosted by this idiot from The Price is Right. It only lasted 13 episodes, thankfully. And finally, Living with Fran, a sitcom about a family which lasted 2 seasons, ending in 2006. In UPN's world, we have Second Time Around, a sitcom about newlyweds, which was canceled after 13 episodes. Veronica Mars, a mystery show, which was actually popular, going up to 2007, a feature film in 2014, and a revival on Hulu in 2019. And finally, Britney and Kevin Chaotic, a reality show about Britney Spears on her Onyx Hotel tour. Only 5 episodes, though. As you probably noticed, there are less shows each season, and this was due to some issues at Viacom. But which was better? I'm only picking the WB because of Britney Spears on UPN. During the 2000s, there were some issues at management at Viacom, as well as the Super Bowl 38 halftime show being an issue for MTV, caused them to be banned from the Super Bowl. Because of these issues, it was decided that Viacom and the CBS Corporation were going to split. This was announced in June 2005. Viacom would take MTV, BET, and Paramount, with the CBS Corporation getting everything else, including UPN. However, the CBS Corporation didn't need UPN. They already had CBS. So for the time being, UPN was kind of an orphan. The disbandment of the two companies was completed on January 1st, 2006. Around the same time, Warner Brothers was considering pulling the plug as the WB wasn't doing very well, with many of their affiliated stations no longer running WB's content anymore. On January 24th, 2006, it was announced that the CBS Corporation and Warner Brothers were shutting down their respective networks, but also creating a joint network called the CW.
So what does the C and the W stand for?
Okay, so we have C for CBS, which used to own UPN, plus W for Warner Brothers equals CW.
It was said that the CW would be the best of the WB and UPN. But there was one more factor in all this. Remember Fox? Fox had owned several affiliated stations of UPN, including New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, the biggest areas in television. Well, Fox decided to create their own news station with the help of MySpace, believe it or not, called My Network TV. While all this was happening, they also had to prepare one last season for the WB and UPN. For the WB, there was Supernatural, a horror series that lasted all the way up until 2020. Pepper Dennis, a comedy drama which only lasted 13 episodes. Just Legal, a courtroom drama. Are you surprised? It only lasted 8 episodes. And finally, Survival of the Richest, a reality show kind of like Survivor, which only lasted 6 episodes. And for UPN, Sex, Love, and Secrets, a soap opera that only lasted a month on air. Love Inc., a sitcom about a dating agency. It was canceled after 1 season. And finally, the show that was too good for UPN, Everybody Hates Chris, based on the life of Chris Rock. It lasted all the way up to 2009, continuing on the CW, and this is definitely my favorite from the UPN. And let's end the ranking here. We are currently tied at 5-5, and which was better? Well, because Everybody Hates Chris, we're going with UPN. 6-5, UPN's the winner. On September 17th, 2006, the WB aired their final night with a block called The Night of Favorites and Farewells, where they aired the pilots of shows that kicked off the network, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dawson's Creek, etc. And at the very end, they aired one last montage celebrating the network.
Faces I remember, I still see. Moving on forever, living life this way, and I can't wait to crawl. I can't wait at all. I can't wait anymore. I can't wait
Unlike the WB, UPN didn't have any ceremony to end the network. It faded to black 2 days earlier after an episode of SmackDown. But with all that, UPN and the WB were done. My Network TV launched on September 5th, and the CW debuted on September 20th. While the CW had plenty of shows, My Network TV almost had nothing. They lasted a whole year on nothing but telenovelas, which was Spanish soap operas. While the CW and My Network TVs were sort of designed to be a 5th and 6th network, in 2009 and 2011 respectively, they learned their place and became syndicated networks rather than terrestrial networks, meaning no more local news for those stations. Although this isn't the end of the story, however. In 2019, it was announced that Viacom and the CBS Corporation were remerging. They would own the same channels, minus UPN of course, but there were also talks of maybe buying the movie channel Stars from LIONSGATE. However, this hasn't happened right now. They also renamed the company to Viacom CBS rather than just Viacom. In 2021, CBS's subscription service will also be renamed to Paramount Plus. Remember when we were talking about the Nashville network? That eventually became Spike in 2003, but in 2018 it was rebranded as the Paramount Network, launching on January 18th with a Michael Jackson episode of Lip Sync Battles. Currently, it airs shows like 2.5 Men, The Office, etc., as well as movies. However, in September 2020, it was announced that the station would be rebranded once again, this time tentatively called the Paramount Movie Network, with the hope of airing more miniseries. And with that has been the history of UPN, the WB, CBS, and Viacom.